What's the one thing in the Pokemon trading card game that can completely ruin a deck? Hint, it's not Budew, unless you're Jago. You know it, you hate it, you understand it's healthy for the game, most of the time. Rotation. Most decks either ride through the storm, think Dragapult, or crumble in its tracks, think Cloth. It's extremely rare for a deck to lose so much of itself to rotation and yet continue to be a dominant force in the meta. But somehow, Gardevoir EX has managed to pull it off, not once, but twice. For nearly 3 years, Gardevoir EX has been one of the most played cards in the Pokemon TCG. It has appeared in many popular decks, been used by top players, and accumulated legendary performance levels all the way from local tournaments to the World Championships. But how did a Pokemon that said goodbye to key cards every year continue to do so well? This is the impressive history of Gardevoir EX. Gardevoir has had many cards with great abilities since its introduction to the TCG all the way back in 2003, with the release of EX Ruby and Sapphire. The first Gardevoir card contained the ability Psy Shadow, allowing the player to search their deck for a Psychic Energy and attach it to one of their Pokemon, while placing 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. However, I wasn't alive back then, so we're going to move past all these other Gardevoir cards that saw success over the years and focus on March 31st, 2023. Scarlet and Violet is released, bringing loads of powerful cards such as Nest Ball, Miraidon EX, Arven, and Wugtrio. The newest Gardevoir EX is widely regarded with potential, having the ability Psychic Embrace, which attaches a basic Psychic Energy from the discard pile to a Psychic Pokemon, while placing 2 damage counters. Basically the same as Psy Shadow from 20 years earlier, with the key exceptions being that 1. The energy has to come from the discard, and 2. The Pokemon has to be Psychic. These requirements will be very important in building the Gardevoir deck. The attack, Miracle Force, is mediocre, but it isn't the focus, as there are better attackers out there waiting to be found. To begin building a Gardevoir EX deck, an engine that allows us to see cards needs to be included. The engine of the deck is a Kirlia with the ability Refinement, which discards a card from the hand and draws 2. This is considered one of the best abilities in the entire TCG, just ask anyone who played during Sun and Moon. Kirlia will be accompanied by Radiant Greninja, a really popular card who has a similar ability. The list of available attackers is nearly endless, but a few Pokemon stand out. The best attackers for our deck both feature an attack that does 60 damage plus 30 for each Psychic Energy attached. One is a Gardevoir, which can deal up to 240 damage solely from Psychic Embraces. The other is Zacian V, the second one, which can OHKO pretty much anything with enough Psychic Embraces, and because it's a basic, it'll be able to do that without any warning to the opponent. Both of these cards have good abilities as well. For our most important trainers, there's Battle Vip Pass, a broken card that searches 2 basics onto the bench during turn 1, which will be important for setup. Also, we got Level Ball, which can search out a Ralts or Kirlia. Fog Crystal can either get a Psychic Energy or basic Psychic Pokemon. The reason there are so many setup cards is to ensure early game consistency, as Kirlia will carry the rest of the time. Other staple cards like Ultra Ball and Professor's Research help discard the Psychic Energies. Mew from Celebrations and Lumineon V are utility Pokemon. Even Pokemon such as Drifloon and Mewtwo V Union are considered as potential attackers. Now we just gotta add some basics, other trainers, and energies, and we're ready to roll. This is Tord Reklev's list for UIC 2023. The literal day of rotation sees a massive tournament, the Europe International Championships. EU doesn't stand for European Union, I guess they just wanted 2 letters before IC. Contenders for first place include the powerful Mew VMAX, Lost Box, and a decimated Lugia V-Star. The decks that perform well here will be the pioneers of Gardevoir EX. It has a low percentage in Day 2, and you'd probably expect lackluster results from its first major, especially against the tried and tested meta that's gunning for the win. So, how did Gardevoir do? The top placement is second, by Tord Reklev, a notable deck builder in the Pokemon TCG community. His build focuses on what I described previously, so no Mewtwo, no Drifloon. The performance sets the record for Gardevoir as a top deck, able to fit in with and even rise above the established meta. The next set, Paldea Evolved, offers new tools to the deck. Reversal Energy, which counts as 3 energies on a Shiny Arcana Gardevoir while losing, and Iono, a strong hand disruption supporter. It lets the player see new cards during the early game when draw power on the board is low, and punishes winning opponents in the late game. This supporter can take a lot of credit for the success of Gardevoir EX. It's with this card availability that Gardevoir EX first attends the World Championships. Featuring a Day 2 play rate of about 14%, its popularity has risen to be on par with Mew VMAX and Lugia V-Star. The same player who placed second at UIC places second again at Worlds, solidifying the message that Gardevoir will be a meta deck for at least until the next rotation, which provides about 8 months to give out left hooks to all the other decks. Paradox Rift provides a new attacker that can damage the bench, Jigglypuff. Its Roaring Scream does 20 damage to any of the opponent's Pokémon for each damage counter on it. With 4 Psychic Embraces, it can do 160 damage to finish off a damaged EX or just KO a single prizer. Another useful card is Counter Catcher, an item that does the boss's job if behind on prizes. Combined with the 4 Ionos we're already playing, Gardevoir can now put on devastating late game combos to leave the opponent struggling to make a winning play. So far, Gardevoir EX has been holding a top position in the meta for about a year, but that is all about to change when rotation hits on April 5th, 2024. The 2 main attackers, Zacian V and Shining Arcana Gardevoir, are moving out of Standard, and along with them go Level Ball, Fog Crystal, and Battle Vip Pass, crippling our attack power and setup. Luckily, the newly released Buddy Buddy Poffin can take the very important Pokemon's place, as it also searches for 2 basics, with the caveat of needing to be less than 80 HP. Earthen Vessel, an item that discards a card and searches 2 energies, can fill in for Fog Crystal, but Level Ball can't totally be replaced. With Zacian V and Shining Arcana Gardevoir gone, hitting numbers over 300 isn't feasible without Luxurious Cape or Hero's Cape, one of which defeats the purpose of a single prize attacker while the other takes the A-Spec slot. The disappearance of some setup materials also hurts the deck, meaning all stages of the game become less favorable towards Gardevoir. In the newest format, Gardevoir play rate is relatively low compared to the 11% at Charlotte and 10% at Portland in January, seeing only 1 in 73 during Day 2 of May's Stockholm Regional. At this point, some people thought Gardevoir would fail. Some people thought this was too much for an aging deck to bear. Some people, nah, who am I kidding, this was totally me. But now you can understand my profile picture, because I was completely wrong. Gardevoir is able to make a legendary comeback largely due to 1 card. Monkey Dory. This Pokemon's ability Adrenabrain requires a Dark Energy attached and moves 30 damage from one of your Pokemon to an opponent's Pokemon. Because the Gardevoir deck doesn't need to use the attach per turn and puts damage on itself, Monkey Dory is the perfect partner. However, the transition from no monkeys to maximum monkeys takes a while, so it's not the lone cause of Gardevoir's interim success.
What Pokemon will he want to target? Which attacker will he want to use? So many things to consider.
At the only major tournament of the Brilliant Stars to Twilight Masquerade format, the North American International Championships, there's a noticeably low amount of Monkey Dories played in Gardevoir decks. Initially, it doesn't seem to be the reason Gardevoir play rates picked up from just 7% at Day 2 at the Indianapolis Regional to a whopping 21% at NAIC. The best hypothesis I can come up with is that the new A-Specs in the set, such as Unfair Stamp and Hyper Aroma, are much better than the Hero's Cape we had from Temporal Forces, presenting an enticing reason to play Gardevoir. Either way, these additions propelled the deck to take 6 of the top 8 slots and finish second overall, an amazing performance considering its losses 3 months prior. The finals match is really good, you should go watch it. Regardless of placing, the outcome of the tournament is this. Gardevoir is back on top, proving its new attackers can be overwhelming, and that its losses are outweighed by its gains from Twilight Masquerade. With a strong position in the meta re-established, Gardevoir attends the 2024 World Championships for a second attempt at the win. Unfortunately, a highly anticipated deck has already claimed favorite to win. The Regidrago box deck has finally harnessed the power of Regidrago V-Star, and with its new toys Dragapult EX and Kyurem, can brutally punish decks with low HP basics. Preparing for its inevitably high play rate, many competitors choose not to use Gardevoir, as the Ralts, Drifloon, Monkey Dory, and Jigglypuff are sitting ducks against the dragon. Gardevoir sees only 6% in Day 2 at Worlds, but there is a noticeable uptick in Monkey Dory counts from 1 to 2, showing increased consideration for the potential of those dangerous damage counters. There's only one other major during this format, Baltimore Regionals, in September. Due to a target being placed on Regidrago's back, other decks with good matchups into it have increased in popularity, while Regidrago's has lowered. It just so happens that Gardevoir has good matchups into many of these decks, forming the perfect opportunity for an upset where Henry Chow takes first place. For the next 4 months, Gardevoir stays in this purgatory where it can't be the best deck and it also can't be the worst, so it does well at some regionals and badly at others. But in January 2025, a card is released that completely churns up the meta. This tiny little Budew is dropped directly into a war zone and proceeds to viciously attack almost everybody there. I've prepared a little demonstration.
Chicken Jockey!
The two decks that escape its wrath are Gardevoir and Dragapult, who will become intrepid rivals for best deck in format. You see, as most decks contain important items needed to attack quickly, Itchy Pollen obliterates their setup potential and leaves them with a terrible board. When Gardevoir gets pollened, it doesn't even sneeze, since it relies on other sources to play the early game. Even better, we're able to use Budew against other people, thanks to our slow setup design. The result? For the last couple months until rotation, Gardevoir does pretty well, really only overshadowed by Dragapult. The deck sees 18% at Day 2 at Merida, 16% at UIC, and 13% at Vancouver and Stockholm, while winning the latter. Barreling towards the end of March, Gardevoir appears to be in a great position heading into the horizon. But wait, another mountain appears. 2025 rotation, which makes 2024 rotation pale in comparison. This time around, Gardevoir will be losing Refinement Kirlia, its extremely powerful draw engine, as well as Radiant Greninja, which can kinda be considered a 5th Kirlia. In most lists, the maximum amount are being played, which is a ton of draw power, down the garbage chute. Remember, these Pokémon are very important, with their abilities acting similarly to Recon Directive nowadays. Importantly, they discard the energies needed to deal massive damage. Without these Pokémon, the deck would have to switch to a supporter-based draw engine, which are inferior in a couple of ways. Besides the natural harmony of Kirlia being in the Gardevoir evolution line, the Pokémon allows for small adjustments with the hand, usually a better prospect than getting rid of all your current cards with the available Professor's Research or Iono supporters. In addition, these trainers can only be played once a turn, leading to potential situations where 2 cards from an Iono may be your only hope at winning, as opposed to 4 or more from Kirlia's. These reasons prevented me from considering Gardevoir as a top deck after rotation. But as you probably know, I was proved a fool once more. The first regional of the format, in Atlanta, occurs on April 12, 2025. Gardevoir play rate is low, just 6% in Day 2, most likely due to the drawbacks I've described and the uncertainty of how to build the deck. With only 2 in top 8, Henry Chow wins the event, causing a shocking revelation to the player base that Gardevoir is still up and running, and potentially even better compared to the meta than before. The reason for this unexpected success is this. The rotated F-block contained many popular decks such as Lugia and Lost Box, while removing vital support cards for other decks like Lumineon V and Radiant Pokémon, weakening much of the remaining meta. In short, Guardy didn't have to be as good after rotation, it just had to lose less power than everyone else, and at that, it succeeded spectacularly. You know the saying, if a bear is chasing you and your friend, you don't have to outrun the bear. You just gotta leave your homie in the dust. Now that I've explained the theory of why Gardevoir is still on top, here's how the nitty-gritty deck building goes. Rapid Strike style. Due to the uncertainty of how to get cards, some players add Zoroark EX, a Pokemon with the same ability as Kirlia, to their decks. Unfortunately, it's a stage 1, so it wastes a lot of space, and as a result, most people don't use it. Mew EX, which draws up to 3 in the hand, is the much more common draw Pokemon in these new Gardevoir decks. Along with the addition of Mew EX comes Lily's Clefairy EX, which adds weakness to Psychic for all Dragon Pokemon, the prevalence of Dragapult is now beneficial, as OHKOs are much easier to pull off. Prior to rotation, decks are able to play tech cards such as TM Devo and multiple Pokemon with control abilities. After rotation, all unnecessary resources need to be consolidated into supporters, such as Professor's Research and Iono, as well as draw Pokemon to offset the loss of Curly's efficient energy discard. This results in a transformation from high Buddy Buddy and low nest ball counts to the low Buddy Buddy and high nest ball counts required to search for Mew EX and Fizanipede EX consistently. An interesting change occurs from this process, where players remove Boss's orders so as to not waste their supporter per turn, and instead play 2 Counter Catcher. The disappearance of fast card draw leads to a longer early game period, increasing reliance on Budew to allow time for setup. Initially, players forego TM Evo in favor of attacking with Itchy Pollen. Arven is cut to a maximum of 2 copies, demonstrating this decreasing dependence on the tool, as well as the aim of using Iono or Research as a supporter per turn. Rare Candy allows for the direct evolution of Ralts into Gardevoir EX, since the Stage 1 is no longer important. Some players decide to keep Arven. Brilliant Blender can be searched by the supporter, quickly discarding all psychic energies needed for the whole game. However, most builds are able to get them in the discard passively, while playing regular turns. The relatively unused Ace-Spec Secret Box becomes a perfect candidate for weakened Gardevoir, discarding energies while searching for a bunch of setup pieces. Combined with the suspicious trait of always being in the Guardy player's hand on turn 1, it becomes the best Ace-Spec for the deck, and somewhat shapes the deck around itself. Players make sure to include a good amount of tools and stadiums so that the card can be used to its full potential. Whew, that was a lot. This regional may have seen the most unique Gardevoir list throughout the deck's entire life. By the time NAIC rolls around, Secret Box with a supporter-based draw engine is the norm in Guardy decks. The 15% of players in Day 2 have very similar deck lists, the main differences being tech cards such as TM Energize or Devolution. The attacker Drifloon is noticeably absent from many players' decks, a change one might expect later in the year, when greediness begins to become mainstream and risks start to be taken. After all, Munkidori can serve to help with extra damage for knockouts, so a big OHKO attacker isn't really necessary. Also, there are differences over evolution strategy. Some people go with a more TM evolution based game plan, and some people choose a Rare Candy friendly strategy. This variance is probably due to the individual's respect of Budew, a justified concern. Fast forward to the 2025 World Championships, where deck lists continue the same patterns from the previous couple months. Nothing remarkable occurs until we get to the last match, the World Finals.
The big knockout if we want. The genome hacking knockout is lined up too. The Duskull could be taken off the board in combination with this.
Oh my
There's a lot to look out for.
Oh my gosh, genome hacking, not just having its own move, it's hacking the system, copying the Dragapult EX and able to use its powerful move against it here and then applied with that Fairy Zone on the Lily.
Oh, he's ready to just give up the game. It's over.
That is history made in the 2025 season here at the Masters Finals.
After more than 2 years of being a deck that everybody knew of, a deck that was respected and feared by all players with a smidge of sense, Gardevoir EX finally manages to take down the most important tournament of the Big 2-5. Piloted by Riley McKay, who also achieved second at NAIC, the deck has at last completed the ultimate goal and triumphed over its rival. In its last few days of life, Gardevoir remains a top deck in the meta, still competing with Dragapult for the number 1 position. Sadly, it usually stays at second place, mostly because of its inferiority to Dragapult in both potential damage and utilization of damage counter placement, despite the high win rate when facing each other. However, its garrison of single prize attackers continues to be a force to be reckoned with, especially against decks with mostly 2 prize attackers, as they are forced to find boss every turn to deal with the Guardy, while still leaving an armed Jigglypuff or Drifloon ready to counterattack. In conclusion, the foundation of the Gardevoir EX deck, first created in 2023, contained many integral cards that would soon vanish to rotation. After the losses of these key cards rendered old versions extinct, the ingenuity and innovation of players created new attackers and engines that has allowed the deck to continue performing at the highest level. These innovators have truly made this deck, and the entire game, achieve much more of its potential as a challenge to me and other Pokémon trainers across the world. With the 2026 rotation looming, this time I'm almost certain that Gardevoir will cease to be a force in the meta, since the literal Gardevoir EX is going out of standard. But hey, You never know. Maybe Mega Gardevoir will somehow become good. Take away its Mega Stone, and we can talk.